All right, y'all. We're back with another episode. Shoot Style Sessions. Me and Eric G in the building, holding it down.
Yes, sir. What's the deal, y'all?
Dealing with this WrestleMania fallout, So,
Right.
If you need any more of a reason to watch our show, if for nothing else, our predictions they be on point. We're we got a pretty high percentage on the last two pay-per-views. We did the AEW show, Revolution, and then we just did WrestleMania, and we damn near got everything correct. So,
yeah, I gotta go back on my predictions because just because of how long of a card it was, split between both nights. So I would have to go back and look at my percentage. But I mean, yeah, man, we're scoring pretty high on these things. We should,
yeah, bro.
We need to figure out which app has the best wrestling betting thing so that we can get in on that.
I'm saying, man, because we be like not just calling the winners and all of that, but we even call how the things are going to play out a lot of the time. So it's we're so watch us, you know what I'm saying? Like if you want to know what's going to happen beforehand, like, we're shooting a good percentage over here, you feel me? So
right.
But yeah, so WrestleMania, man, how did you feel about it? Now that we're a week removed, we've had some time to sit on it. Some things have transpired after. What are your thoughts on it now? What were your initial thoughts, and what are your thoughts now?
I don't want to say my thoughts haven't changed too much. Maybe with night 2 more so than night 1. But my initial thoughts coming out of night 1 was that it was a lackluster show bookended by a really good main event. And then I thought night 2 was a great show bookended by a terrible main event. And I don't even want to go as far as to say terrible because the match in and of itself wasn't that bad. But obviously the after effects of what we got after, that was a different story. But like looking at it now, I mean, like I said, I haven't really changed my thoughts too much. I guess more so my thoughts on night 2 have changed only because of the ending. And obviously we're going to talk about it, but I think it was pretty bad, but in the grand overall scheme, I think people did kind of blow it out of proportion initially because they were just really pissed that they didn't basically get what they want. That wouldn't have really, I think, been amplified as much if we didn't get a lot of the fallout from the top brass that we ended up getting later on during the week. So I think that, personally, I think that the damage control that WWE tried to do actually kind of hurt more than it helped.
So I want to speak on that, actually, including Mania week. Like,
like the whole promo week leading up to it.
Everything, all the way up until, like the whole week leading up to Mania. You got Nick Khan out there talking about AEW. You got, different things happening in the lead up to Mania that are not making the fans very happy. You know what I mean? Like, just to put it out there, like a lot of that MAGA shit, you know what I'm saying? A lot of the fans tried to ignore, like real, just being real. Like a lot of the fans tried to ignore that. They tried to ignore the fact that Linda McMahon is in Trump's cabinet and Triple H and Stephanie were sitting there. They tried to ignore that. They tried to ignore Tony Hinchcliffe, being the commentator and cracking that joke on Big E without Big E giving him permission to do that. You know what I mean? They looked past that. They looked past then him being invited back for the roast. They tried to look past Triple H's comments that could be perceived as praising Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Then Roman does the same thing that same week. A few days before Mania comes out, his comments about Trump that, pissed a lot of people off, you know what I'm saying? And then even CM Punk, he said some shit like, oh, what? You guys are saying it's a MAGA company, so I'm supposed to quit because I'm, on the left or whatever. So, like, there was just a lot of not WrestleMania related stuff leading into Mania. And then on the flip side, AEW is having a banger week. They have one of the best dynamites in recent memory that week. And so then after, you have this situation where The Rock doesn't show up or whatever, and then he goes on Pat McAfee's show and basically spills the behind the scenes biz, you know what I'm saying? And basically says, I wanted it to kind of go a different way, and I knew this wasn't going to really work out, but, had a creative did what he wanted to do, you know what I mean? And people interpret that as him throwing Triple H under the bus. So it's like all of the media stuff surrounding WrestleMania has been a bad look for WWE. Like damn near all of it.
I was gonna say you can even ignore the well, not I don't want to say ignore, but for you can look at the Trump stuff as one thing, because as most fans that are just wrestling fans, they might see that, but they won't look as deep into that as everything else. Some of the media stuff was just flat out right in their face. Kind of showing you that it was kind of a weird vibe leading up until the weekend. Going back to what you said about Triple H and his media comments, the whole thing about criticism and about telling a lot of the YouTubers and the critics and journalists and stuff like that to be like, just shut up and just enjoy what's happening in front of you. Kind of like The Rock saying, just shut up and enjoy the ride, or whatever he's been saying. Like, it kind of goes back to those comments too, because they were leaning so strong into the, oh, don't worry about all the about all the dirt sheet news and stuff like that. Like, none of that stuff is real going into Mania. Don't listen to that stuff. Like, none of that's real. Turns out a lot of the stuff that ended up being on dirt sheets, and a lot of the people that came out and said that The Rock wasn't going to be there originally and stuff, it turns out a lot of those guys were right. So I think it almost, when I say that they almost felt like they were playing damage control, it almost felt like Triple H knew what the perception coming out of Mania was going to be, and it felt like he was gearing people up to be disappointed, for lack of a better term. And I don't think he could just straight come out and say that, obviously. Right. So he has these little statements in these interviews where he's like, as fans, you guys shouldn't even question what's going on. It's like, we're fans of this shit at the end of the day. Of course we should question some of the things that are going on. Maybe not to a crazy degree, like how a lot of certain online fans get, not like the sickos club, not like you guys. I'm talking about the real sickos, the actual nasty people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about them specifically. So I don't know. I just think it just felt very defensive leading up until the weekend, and after the weekend kind of came and went, the same thing kind of happened, like I said, with The Rock and kind of with the damage control cleanup. And it's like, you guys, if anything, you guys should have just let the work on Raw that you did speak for itself, and the work that you did on SmackDown speak for itself, because both episodes this week were really good. So guys should have just stuck with that.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't I'm not just here to shit on WWE or anything like that. It's more of just realizing where we are as a society also, right? So it's yes, while the average wrestling fan may not be super involved in politics, because politics is so in your face every day, it's hard to avoid it now. So what's going on, even if you don't pay attention to it every day. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the only reason I make that distinction, because, people know, as far as the celebrities and stuff like that, people know who likes who, you know what I mean? As far as politically. And so when you're the majority of the people that you have on or feature or in some type of way, it's known where they stand, you know what I mean? It makes you look a certain kind of way. And then again with the El Grande Americano stuff, you know what I mean? That gave people Trump vibes, especially with the Gulf of America. You could take that as a joke, but a lot of people, certain jokes offend people, you know what I mean? So it is, you just got to know the climate is basically the argument I'm making.
Yeah.
So it's realistically, you can feel however you feel. For example, Shad Khan, Tony Khan's dad, he's a billionaire. He's in all likelihood a Republican. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, let's be real. But I don't know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they do the opposite. They're very inclusive on AEW. Like, they have Toni Storm come out and she's standing in front of the big trans flag. They have trans wrestlers. They have non-binary wrestlers who use they them pronouns. Like, you know, they celebrate Black History Month. Half of their champions are all black right now. So it's like, even if they donated to Trump in 2016 or even in the most recent campaign, none of their public actions show that. You know what I mean? None of their public actions display really any sort of like right-wing bigotry on any level. You know what I mean? Like, whereas I'm not saying that WWE displays right-wing bigotry, but I don't think they're as careful about it. So if something happens, they have to do more damage control on the back end versus them kind of looking at it up front and being like, hey, is this a good idea? Is this something that we should do? You know what I mean? Like, they'll run with it and then deal with the backlash later. Right. So that kind of coincides with the attitude overall that I'm seeing with all these media appearances. And then the Randy Orton thing where a fan walks up to him and, you know, tells him, yo, I spent $30,000 to be here this weekend and do all of this stuff. And Randy was like, man, I'm embarrassed. Like, that's insane that you would have to spend that much money. You know what I mean? And it doesn't appear that WWE's learning their lesson from that, because I just saw some ticket sales for, I forgot exactly the show, but they're basically in the same price range. Like, it's like $8,000 and some shit, $5,000. Like, I saw numbers like that. So I'm like, oh, they're just going to keep doing it. Okay. Like, so I don't know, man. Like, I just, again, when you look at it as a corporation, not as a wrestling entity, a lot of what they're doing makes sense. The constant bringing The Rock back, having Travis Scott be involved, having Cena win the championship, which also makes story sense, but from purely business corporation looking at it like that, a lot of what they're doing makes sense. When you look at it from an entertainment value standpoint, from a wrestling perspective, that's where it gets shaky. So again, I think about it in two different ways. And when I think about it from the business corporate management level standpoint, people who don't care what the business is, they're just moving numbers and, those people in the offices, like, then everything they're doing makes sense. So,
no, I feel you on that.
But Dave Meltzer gave Io, Bianca, and Rhea 5 stars. Do you agree with that rating?
Oh, yeah. Well deserved. Best match of the whole weekend. 100%. I guess I was a little surprised because, Dave is, he'll give out 5 stars like hotcakes to AEW, but with WWE, he's very, very selective on his 5-star matches. So I was a little surprised he gave that one 5 stars, but no, it was very well deserved. It was, like I said, best match of the weekend. All 3 of them, are just their chemistry in ring. All 3 of them just interweave together is just something special. I don't know how they weave some of that shit together. Especially towards the end, some of those near fall spots that they broke up the pin at the last second for. Jesus Christ, I don't know how they did some of that shit, but yeah, I thought it was fantastic. There was maybe, to be honest with you, I think that probably if I was just looking at every match on star level rating or whatever, if I was doing it, that probably is the only 5-star match that I would give out of the night. Yeah. The only other one that would come close, I would probably maybe give a 4.5, maybe to the 4-way with Braun Breaker, Dom, Penta, and Finn Balor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd maybe give that 4.5. But other than that, I don't think anything else really came close. There's a few other 4 stars on there, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I don't disagree with the 5-star. But I also don't disagree with people who are that might be a little high. And the only reason I say that is because, yes, in comparison to every other match that happened at WrestleMania, it was head and shoulders above the rest of them. From the story aspect, they told the story consistently all the way through, and it played out exactly how I thought. Rhea and Bianca were going to be paying too much attention to each other. underestimating EO. EO pulls out the victory. Exactly. Simple storytelling makes sense. But what they were doing in the ring, it was just constant action, constant movement. They weren't really repeating anything. There wasn't a lot of just, punch kick type offense. They were doing stuff the whole time. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, what gets them that 5 stars, because, and I think that's why Dave Meltzer is very selective with the matches that he gives 5 stars in WWE. It's because a lot of them are, punch kick, signature spam, finisher spam, near fall until somebody, you know what I mean? Like it's a very specific playbook that WWE plays by. There's only a few people or a few matches on any given night that kind of stray outside of that formula where you're going to get a just variety of moves the whole time. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, so because the matches themselves are just paced in such a way to where, like it's going to start slow, and then it's going to have, in the middle, it's going to pick up a little bit. It's going to slow down. It's going to speed up, slow down a little bit. Towards the end, it's going to speed up, and then you'll get your finish. That's every match in WWE for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Like, whereas in AEW, I think you're going to get more 5 stars because they're just doing more shit in every match. Like the only time you really see Strike Fest is when it's very intentional and they're doing the Japanese strong style thing where they stand there and exchange forearms, but outside of that, they're not really punching and kicking too much unless it's like super kicks and shit. Like they're doing moves, you know what I mean? So I think that's the difference, kind of.
I mean, I do want to give him his credit though, because funny that I made him give here I am giving freaking Meltzer credit on here, but I do want to say though, he will stray outside of the 5-star match to just moves if the story is really good. On top of that, prime example, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre Hell in a Cell last year, he gave that 5 stars.
Yeah, but there was a lot of action in that match too. It wasn't just them punching each other. That's what I'm saying.
Like, no, I know, but what I'm saying is it was a lot of action in that too. But what I'm saying is that he will give one a 5-star rating if the story is compelling enough in the match in and of itself too. Like if it's not just about the high spots and movements, because were there a lot of crazy spots in that Hell in a Cell match? Of course there was. I can think of that one backdrop spot that Drew did off the steel steps that just flashed in my mind like easily. But again, like in that match, there was also like just the feud in and of itself bringing the actual aggression of the story out of that match, which is another reason why I think he gave it 5 stars. Like it wasn't just because they did a lot of cool shit in that match, which again, I'm going to say that they did. So I don't want to take away from the fact that they did cool shit in the match, because of course they did. But
no, I agree with you. I think we're saying the same thing. Because what I'm saying is, like, for example, I don't think Roman Reigns during his entire bloodline run got any 5-star matches. You see what I'm saying?
Maybe
like
against
that's what I mean.
And Daniel Bryan, but I would have to go back and check. I don't know.
I'd have to check that one too, but that would probably be the only one. You get what I'm saying? Like, because that was almost entirely story driven. So like the matches, I'm not going to say they didn't matter because people like the matches, but again, you know what you're getting out of a Roman Reigns match. There's going to be a lot of clotheslines, a lot of shit talking, a lot of strikes, and then he's going to Superman spam and spear spam. Like every now and then he might hit you with a suplex. Every now and then he might pull out a power bomb, but not for real. You know what I mean? Like, that's a rare thing. So that's what I'm saying. Like, whereas like the equivalent of that in AEW is probably Kenny Omega would probably be the equivalent of Roman in AEW. And he's going to hit you with 1,000 moves a match. You know what I'm saying? Like, story or not. Now, if the story's there, that just gives it that extra thing that makes it the 5-star instead of 4 or 4.5 or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? So I guess in WWE, I would argue that that's the thing that's missing in their huge matches is that they sometimes rely a little too much on story and not enough on the in-ring stuff in those big moments. Like, I don't expect them to necessarily have 5-star classics on every Raw and SmackDown. That's not what I'm saying. But like WrestleMania, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that Roman was as active as he was at WrestleMania in that triple threat, I was very happy to see. He was doing shit. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't just, it wasn't a typical Roman match. Like, he was active, and I was like, okay, this is, yes, like, show me this. This is what you should be doing on Mania. You know what I mean? So I just want to see more of that, I guess. And that would, you know, make me happy. You know what I mean?
To Roman's credit, outside of really the match against Solo, and I honestly probably just the match against Solo on Netflix, because even though that was the Netflix debut and we were geeked for it, if you go back and watch that match now, that match is boring as shit until the interferences start happening. But I will say, to Roman's credit, he's been a lot more active since he lost the title in his matches. Like, in War Games, he was doing a lot of shit. In his Mania matches, he was doing shit. So I do want to give him his credit. But however, if you go back and watch that Netflix match against Solo, good God, that shit was boring as hell.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but okay, so Cody and Cena got one and I think like a 3/4 or something like that. Do you think that that's too harsh?
I guess it depends on how you look at it, right? Because if you're looking at it like from just a realistic perspective, obviously Cena is not going to be able to give you like that good of a match today.
Right.
Like, one, he's a lot older. Two, all these Hollywood commitments and shit like that. Like, he can't be just doing anything too risky. So his matches are going to be very basic. Again, they're going to rely mostly on story to make his matches actually good. It's not going to be the quality of the in-ring work that makes it good. You know what I mean? So from that angle, if you're comparing it to the rest of the modern day wrestling landscape, yeah, it probably deserves that. Like, again, it was just finisher spamming the whole, you know what I'm saying? He hit him with what, 5 AAs and then a title, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, do some other shit, do some power bombs, do that springboard stunner move that you do. You know what I'm saying? Hit him with that leg drop off the top. Like, Cena, you got other moves in your arsenal. You don't have to do 5 AAs. You know what I mean? So that's my issue there. Now, if you're gonna consider Cena's age and all the other stuff and kind of grade it on a curve because you know that stuff is going to interfere with the type of match he can produce, then it probably should get a slightly higher rating because of the story aspect of it, because, you know, it was a historic moment. He won number 17, and in WWE's world, that's the most. You know, so there are reasons why you should rate it higher if you're going to take those things into account also. You know what I mean? So it really, I guess, it just depends on that aspect. Like, do you grade it on a curve because of his age and because of Hollywood, or do you not grade it on a curve and treat it as if he's everybody else who's wrestling right now? If you treat it like he's everybody else who's wrestling, it deserves the rating it gets. But if you grade it on that curve, I think maybe you give it another star and a half, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I was gonna say I would probably give him a slight benefit of the doubt, but it wouldn't be that much. It'd be like, like you said, half star, maybe a star at the most.
Yeah.
But
so it would go from what, 1.5 to 2.5?
Yeah, like it's not even like it would be that much better. So
yeah, but no, like, you know, it was, I guess, what I expected. I don't know what I expected. It was basically what I expected. I mean, everybody expected The Rock to come out, obviously, which he didn't. And, you know, Travis came out instead, whatever. Like, we don't necessarily have to harp on that. We kind of already talked about it, and every other YouTube channel's talking about it, so we're good. But yeah, I don't know. That's I'm curious to see how they recover. You know, they brought back some people. Miro's back. Rusev is back. It's Rusev Day. Aleister Black is back. They still haven't brought back Alexa and the Wyatt Six. I'm assuming they're going to do that next week. But they're bringing back some people. They called up Fraxium to the main roster from NXT. They're on SmackDown now, so it looks like they're making some moves. Jade
And then
looked good
obviously
against
Seth
Tiffany.
Rollins, Braun Breaker, with Paul Heyman.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll focus on that in a little bit because we can
Yeah.
do some fantasy booking with that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to shout out Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton because for them to both be new wrestlers, they look good in the ring together in their one-on-one. Especially Jade, because she kind of has a rep for not being a good wrestler per se. She's more of a presence, and but she looked good in there with Tiffany, I think. So I'm they're continuing that feud with Naomi and Jade, so we'll see where that goes, but I'm excited to see where Jade goes from here, just because you could tell Naomi was like obviously the ring general of their match at WrestleMania. So I'm curious to see her in other one-on-one matches against other people where she has to do more selling and she has to, transition from move to move a little bit faster and, stuff like that. Because that's how a lot of the women wrestle. They don't really wrestle like the dudes. They're doing shit.
Right.
I'm curious to see where Jade goes from here.
Yeah, I definitely am too. I want to shout out to the Street Profits. That that main
TLC
event tag match, that TLC match, boy oh boy, that shit was a banger. Lot of fun spots in that match. A lot of people were saying, why isn't this match on WrestleMania instead of the other match? And I think a lot of people were kind of asking that question too. I think really me and you basically figured it out after the match was over. I think it was because of the time length. I think they wanted to give those guys a long time to go out there and do all that shit. And I think, unfortunately, with how Mania is structured right now, I just don't think that they had the time to fit that in because of the other longer matches that they needed to have on that card. So I think that's the reason why. But yeah, I thought that match was absolutely fantastic. The prosthetic leg spot with Montez Ford was hilarious. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch it because so funny. But yeah, really fun match. If there's nothing else that you watch on SmackDown all weekend, I would say watch that match.
Definitely. So yeah, as far as the new stable that we got going, so we got Paul Heyman as the wise man still.
Mm-hmm.
We have Seth as the apparent leader, and we have Braun Breaker as a part of it as well, which again, my predictions be on point. Pretty sure I mentioned it on the show somewhere before that I see Braun Breaker as a Paul Heyman guy because of the NXT situation that they had last year, maybe, or the year before.
Yep.
I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, he's basically Brock Lesnar and Goldberg combined. So, a little bit smaller frame, but the intensity, the move set, like how fast he is, all of that stuff, it's just them two combined. And he sounds like Scott Steiner, and then he's Rick's son. So, like, that's Paul Heyman all day. That's, right up his alley.
Yeah, match made in heaven.
So yeah, where do we see more members joining this? Are they gonna not be a tag team per se, but functionally a tag team where it's just two of them with a manager, but maybe one's trying to dominate the mid card while Seth's going for the world? Or how do we see this playing out?
I do see at least one other person being added. This doesn't feel like just a two-man power trip situation. Like, it definitely feels more like a dangerous alliance situation. Huh?
Who do you think it'll be?
I really don't know because there's a lot of different people that I have in mind. And a lot of different theories that I've heard being floated out there that sound interesting. No pun intended to one of the people that I'm going to bring up. But I've heard Carmelo Hayes. I've heard Drew McIntyre. I've heard Austin Theory. I've heard Trick Williams. Who else did I hear that was interesting? Whatchamacallit? Incoming Jeff Cobb. Bronson Reed. Those are the names to me that like stuck out the most when I just heard them being floated around. So yeah, I can realistically, I don't know who storyline wise makes the most sense, but just from a visual perspective, I could see any one of those people be slotted in. What do you think?
I like Theory, actually. I really like Theory going in there. Um, I like Drew.
I like Mello in there too.
I like Mello, but I also kind of like what him and Miz have going on right now. Like, I didn't at first. I thought it was weird. Like, why are they putting them together? Like, but some of the stuff they're doing is kind of funny. Like the backstage segments where, you know, Miz is trying to be cool and Mello's like not with it. And he's like, all right, man, like whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? But he's slowly coming around to the idea of being cool with Miz. Like, you can tell that they're actually, you know, getting cool now.
Yeah, he gave that big ass Andre the Giant chain.
Right. So it's like, that's interesting. You know, I'm curious to see where that goes. But I do think, like, yeah, building up almost like a modern day, not Evolution, but Randy's old group, Legacy, kind of like Legacy, yeah. But not necessarily just guys who are like, you know, second or third generation guys or whatever, but just young guys in general.
Yeah.
So like a Braun, like a Theory, Theory and Grayson Waller. If you're not going to break them up, bring them both in the fold and have them, you know what I mean? Like, because you could make Grayson Waller a little bit more serious of a character too, because I think he's supposed to have like a boxing background or something like that. So, you know, you can incorporate that. But yeah, I would like it to be mostly young guys and maybe, you know, you could throw Becky in there.
Yeah,
you know,
that was going to be my next question. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, you could throw Becky in there. That makes sense.
I like it because Paul Heyman's never managed I don't think, at least correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's managed any female wrestlers.
Not in WWE, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think he used to manage. Yeah, like in WCW, part of the Dangerous Alliance, like when Medusa was a part of it, you know, stuff like that. But yeah. So yeah, there's a few different ways that it could go. I'm curious though.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, let's move on to AEW, because that was a fun week. I just want to talk about Dynamite, just because, you know, they're setting up a lot of stuff. You know, Collision came on also yesterday. It was a good show, but not necessarily anything too noteworthy as far as storyline progression. It was mostly, you know, just a good show for wrestling's sake. So I'll focus on Dynamite. But I'm gonna do it out of order, because our Ring in the Wrap session is obviously a direct result of the opening segment of Dynamite this week. So I'm gonna skip that for now. But Ricochet and Mark Briscoe, they went out there, had a banger. And Mark Briscoe actually won the match. But, you know, Ricochet, he can keep that heat. That's not an issue for him, which he did.
I like that because it felt like for a while Mark Briscoe was like kind of always losing.
Yeah.
On Dynamite, so I'm glad he got the win there.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely that utility player. Like, he gets most of his wins in tag situations, and that's what keeps his record looking as decent as it is. And then he got a lot of wins in Ring of Honor as well when he was Ring of Honor champion. So that is what kind of keeps his record looking good. But yeah, you're right. On Dynamite, he loses a lot. So that was cool to see that. Next segment, we got Big Stoke back. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Stokely Hathaway. He's the new manager for FTR. And so definitely excited to see where that goes. You know, FTR had a match on Collision against Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, the Paragon, and they defeated them. And, you know, heel FTR is just fun. And then Stokely is one of my favorite managers in wrestling.
You know what I didn't realize?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were planning that that angle for a while. Like, I guess Stokely was supposed to manage FTR like a few months ago, but what ended up happening was that was right around the time that the Outrunners were really getting over, and so I guess
So they were
that's
like, let's
when they
slow
paired
down.
FTR with the Outrunners to kind of help
Gotcha.
facilitate that a little bit. So
That makes sense.
yeah,
That makes sense.
so yeah, we
Okay.
supposed to Ben had this. So yeah, I'm glad it's happening now. Yeah, shout
Yeah.
out Stokely.
Hell yeah. We also got the Young Bucks versus Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight. That was one of the greatest tag matches I've seen in recent memory. And it also appears that Kevin Knight and Ricochet are heading on a crash course for a little rivalry here because actually in the last match, it was Kevin Knight who, I forgot exactly what he did, but he somehow diffused Ricochet's cheating, which is what allowed Mark Briscoe to get the win. So you already know Ricochet's getting his get back.
I think he stole his scissors.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So then, yeah, of course he's going to get his get back. So
that's going to be a fun little feud.
Absolutely.
I said this before on one of the past episodes, but Kevin Knight's my favorite new person in AEW currently.
He's fire.
Yeah.
He's fire. His music's fire. His moveset's fire. His character's good. They're giving him mic time and like he seems comfortable. I think he came from New Japan, so I want to definitely go back and check a lot of his older work because he's great. He's definitely, like, I was a guest on Sit Down, Shut Up, and Mark Out, part of the Sickos Club. Make sure you go check out my man I Blade Daily and Joshi G, their podcast. But I was a guest on there, and we were talking about how dope Kevin Knight is and how he's in all likelihood a future world champion.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, he's that good.
Yeah.
MJF still trying to join the Hurt Syndicate. Pulled up with the sex workers last week. That didn't all the way get it done. Tries to give Bobby Lashley his car this week. Shelton gives him the thumbs up. MVP gives him the thumbs up. Bob, still not convinced. Takes the keys. Him and Shelton get in. Gives him the thumbs down and drives away. But this is leading in two different storyline directions, obviously. So MJF trying to join the Hurt Business. It's a really good trope because MJF being the supreme asshole, him trying to get friends is just a story that works every time. That him and Adam Cole thing, the Pinnacle, back in the day, when AEW first started, I should say. But yeah, like that trope of him trying to gain somebody's trust or trying to become somebody's friend because he's a slime ball, but you want to see if he can actually, turn over a new leaf. Like, that story just works for MJF. So this is that again, but they're doing it differently. So I really am enjoying what's going on here.
Yep, agreed.
Eric, what are your thoughts on the MJF Hurt Business or Hurt Syndicate storyline so far?
I mean, I've liked it from the beginning, not just because I like all four. I was going to say three. Really, there's four. But not because I like all four of these gentlemen, but it's just because it feels like to me like they're kind of giving Bobby a little bit more room to like have fun with his character here. And I really appreciate watching that. So that's what I like seeing there. And there's a few, like you said, there are a very few interesting ways that they can go with this. And I'm just excited to see like how they end up like mashing this together and just kind of the other side that we come out of with it.
For sure. We had Don Callis family, Konosuke Takeshita and Josh Alexander taking on Will Ospreay and Brody King, which was a definite banger. Alexander and Takeshita won.
I laughed really hard when Brody King chopped Will to tag him in, and Will was like,
and Will sold it like that was hilarious. And then Brody was like, "Oh, my bad, man. Like I figured you could take it."
Right.
And then in the, I don't even know how many weeks in a row at this point because it's just a normal occurrence now, which is beautiful. in the main event, we have Chris Statlander versus Jamie Hayter in the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Cup, or I don't know if it's a cup, but excellent match.
Yeah.
Two big meaty mama slapping meat. It was just two very strong, hard-hitting, makes their shit look like it hurts women fighting each other. You know what I mean? Like when you watch Chris, her moves, they look like they actually are hurting the opponent. And same with Jamie, you know what I mean? Like her strikes, her slams, they look like there's actual oomph put into them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, wrestling just going through the moves. Like they actually lay their shit in. And so seeing both of them work like that, and being able to, do all of their stuff to each other, like it was really entertaining. And, I'm a fan of both ladies. I'm a huge Chris Statlander fan. So, of course my heart wanted her to win, but I feel like Jamie's taking the whole thing. I'm pretty sure I possibly predicted that on the show as well. So that prediction is staying true so far. Jamie Hayter, I think, is going to win the whole tournament. Again, it makes the most storyline sense for her to go to All In, which is in the UK,
Yep.
where she's from, win the title against the person who took the title from her and injured her in storyline, Tony Storm. So all of it is playing out perfectly to reach that conclusion. So, I feel like you kind of got to do it, right? But excellent match, though.
Yeah, excellent match. I think that was their first time ever facing off against each other, and I didn't. And I really had to put two and two together and be like, how have they never faced each other before? But then I remembered it was partially because Jamie and Chris were kind of title holders respectively when they could have had the match. I think that was back when Chris had the TBS and then Jamie had the world title. So yeah. Like you said, really good match. I think you're right. It is kind of set up right now for Jamie to win the whole thing. However, I will say I am not betting against Mercedes Moné at the moment just because she's one of those people where it's hard to bet against her, and it's just one of those things where I'm not gonna ever really doubt and say that she's gonna lose until I actually see it happen. So for right now, I will probably say you're right, Shane, that it is probably going to be Jamie and Tony at All In. But until I see Mercedes lose, I'm not going to definitively say that.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair. She's killing the game. I love what Mercedes is doing. She's killing it.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to the Ring and the Raps, where this week, New Orleans hip-hop legend Master P blessed us with his presence. He comes down to the ring to make him say which was wonderful. One of my favorite Master P songs, one of everybody's favorite Master P songs.
You knew Samoa Joe wanted to do that shit too.
Joe comes down, Master P brings out the Opps. So Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, Katsuyori Shibata, they come out. They're showing Master P love. Samoa Joe takes the mic, make him say gets the crowd to say back. You know what I mean? It's lovely, lovely time. Everybody's enjoying themselves. They're celebrating Master P being Coach P now. You know what I mean? They're talking about the different athletic leagues and things like that he's got going on in New Orleans. And then the Opps music, the Death Riders music hits. And you see Marina Shafir coming down with the icy cold stare out of the crowd. You know what I mean? With the beautiful eyes, giving you a death stare through the camera, but hypnotizing you at the same time. And then the rest of the riders come out, and they start squabbling with the Opps. But Master P's not shook. He's from the streets. He's from the projects. You know what I'm saying? He's from the Calliope. And then he went up to Oakland and was trapping his music in the Bay. Master P ain't shook. You know what I'm saying? So he's just standing there. waiting on Moxley to do something like touch me, you know what I'm saying, and see what happens. Mox turns around and he sees that P's not scared. And Mox is like, why aren't you scared? You should be. So he approaches P. And as this happens, P knows that the Opps are going to have his back. So Samoa Joe comes back in, chokes out Mox, and Master P throws the most hilarious, softest, worked punches I've ever seen in my entire life. They are worse than Shane McMahon punches, which is saying something. Hilarious. Shout out to Master P.
He was doing everything in his power to hold them punches back.
Yeah, he pulled the exact opposite of Travis Scott. You know what I mean? Travis Scott laid that shit in. P said, nah, I'm gonna make sure that that these bitches
absolutely
don't no type happens. Of pain. Yeah, not even a bruise, nothing. You're good. But for those of you who don't know, this is not Master P's first foray into the world of professional wrestling. In fact, Master P has a whole stable actually named after him.
Yep.
No Limit Soldiers. So when he was in WCW, as you can see in this picture, yes, Master P was in WCW.
That's right.
You can see that he had his own stable or faction or group, for those of you who, for some reason, are not familiar with wrestling terminology and are watching this show. But that was his crew. You know, DX is a stable, NWO is a stable, etc. So his stable was the No Limit Soldiers. And in that stable, as you can see, we have an unmasked Rey Mysterio over here to the left. We have Conan, aka K-Dog, right here in the blue right here. Standing behind K-Dog, you might be familiar with this guy. We call him Das Wunderkind. His name is Alex Wright, the German dancing machine. And then here in the fatigues, we have Master P. I'm not sure who the black gentlemen are, unfortunately. I know the guy to the left is a wrestler, but he wasn't very popular. I think he was just in this group. I don't know if the guy on the right is a wrestler or not, or if he's just like a bodyguard or part of P's crew
entourage or whatever.
And then you have Eric Bischoff, the president at the time of WCW. So, yeah, P is not new to this. He is true to this, and we spell true TRU because that's how he spelled his group's name. So. That was him, C Murder, and Silk the Shocker. The three of them, they are known as True collectively. So yeah, but yeah, that's a little bit of history for you. Like I said, Master P, not new to the wrestling game. He's known Tony Schiavone for over 30 years, probably. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know, because of the AEW and the WCW thing. So, you know, they've at least met before. So, but that's dope to see. You know, whenever, again, you know how we do, you know, we love it when they infuse hip hop culture or urban culture into pro wrestling. AEW does it constantly. You know, it's just built into their fabric at this point. Like,
right.
Yeah. So shout out P.
Yeah, shout out to Master P. That was,
Eric, anything?
That was some funny old, very funny weak work punches, but gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Excellent. Definitely go back and check out, you know, I'll say check out the Rey Mysterio and Conan matches from back in those days. Because, you know, you're always going to get quality there. You know, don't pay attention to the stories too much because there was a lot of nonsense happening in WCW in those years also, and you could probably avoid that. But the matches, probably some quality there. So go check out those No Limit Soldier, Rey Mysterio, and Conan matches. You can also ignore the Disco Inferno matches. You don't need to look at that. Just focus on Rey and Conan. That's it. That's outside
the
of that.
Gifted Glenn Gilberti. How is he gifted?
Yeah. Shout out Marky D. Anything else, Eric, before we get out of here?
Nah, that's about it, y'all.
All right, y'all. This has been Shoot Style Sessions. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe for all the latest content. And follow us at Shane_ethos. I'm newly on Blue Sky, so you can follow me there as well at Shane-ethos. Everything else is Shane_ethos. You can follow me wherever you find me. Follow that young man at the Eric G Life on everything. And until next time, peace.
Later.